This week on the Trent Out Loud Podcast.
So when we talk about Canada and Canadians often get a little uncomfortable. Oh, that's the American history. You know, we were kind of like nice people. No, you also own slaves. We were labor for people's great economies. This is like you're like being the fire and the coals to uplift people's economies. So Canada is not exempted from that. The French, the British, nobody is exempted from that. Marie-Joseph Angelique. She was an enslaved woman in Montreal that they dragged her through the streets of Montreal. You know, they killed her every which way imaginable you can think of because of her resistance of her enslavement life. These things are not reflected in our history books.
Yes.
And this is very sad that people tend to get uncomfortable when you bring these things up. It's like, no, just keep that dormant. We don't really want people to know Canada is this wonderful, lovely white place.
What up, everybody? Welcome to the Trent Out Loud Podcast. I am your host, Trent Out Loud. You guys are in for a treat today. I have one of my most favorite people in the world. Oh my gosh, let me introduce her. All right. Itah is a distinguished storyteller and children's author. She has published a few books. Let me tell you some of the titles. How the Coconut Got Its Face, Name Calling, Christopher, Please Clean Up Your Room, and Christopher Changes His Name. She is also a co-owner of a popular bookstore, A Different Booklist. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and create a big round of applause for the amazing and incomparable Itah! You can tell already why she's one of my most favorite people. How are you?
Oh, I am good. I'm good. When the story is told, it will be said that on February the 2nd, 2023, the year of the 7th, I was speaking to Trent Out Loud in the Trent Out Loud studios, not to be confused about what platform we are on.
You know what? I introduce you as Itah just because you're big. You're like Madonna and Beyonce. You don't even need a last name. It's just Itah's in the building. What's up?
You know, at one point I thought Itah Sadu was just one name.
Oh my gosh, you are hilarious, man. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm having a great day. It is the second day of Black History Month, African History Month, and I'm even noting too that in language, I remember years ago I was pretty militant that this was African History Month, and that we were more than a color. But now I use the words interchangeably. A senior I met who has changed so many things in Canada, and I was going on and on and on about being African Canadian, and he said to me, yes, but dear, I'm talking to you about the time when before African Canadians, when we were black. Oh, got a little school there. And so out of respect to people who came before, who have that identification, who might not have updated themselves, who don't have a new speak, I say Black history and African Canadian history.
Nice.
Yes.
I totally, I've never heard anybody refer to Black History Month as African History Month, but that's really what it is, right? Like we should talk about our culture, not just our color.
And it is important because sometimes, you know, Africa is this place, you know, into the heart of Africa, the dark continent, all those things.
Yeah.
And even in terms of people of African descent, we had so many myths and stereotypes. If you note in literature, oftentimes, on the continent of Africa, and you've traveled there, it is a continent to begin with, and people often refer to it like as though this is this country. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And then they depict the continent of Africa only in rural settings. Just think about it. So every time that you see people being depicted on the continent of Africa, they're not in a city like Lagos, millions of people, huge cities.
True.
They're not in Harare. In Zimbabwe, in a big city. They're always somewhere and they're pounding. You know, they're always pounding something. People carry stuff on their heads, you know. You don't see doctors. You don't see scientists. You don't see people who bring you the weather. All you see is us being located in a rural setting so that we continue the myth of this jungle place, of this dark place. Eh? What a thing. And so consequently,
I totally get what
we
you're
have
saying.
subscribed to that. So the resistance in my generation and with my generation was to push back on that. We come out of Africa, people with this skin color. We come out of that continent. And whether we are in the diaspora, we still have a home and a place to belong.
For me, I think a part of it is the younger generation is maybe kind of ignorant to our ancestry and our heritage. Like, and I'll tell you something that I just learned the other day, and I don't mind, sharing how ignorant I was. I am a very proud Jamaican. Ignorantly, I thought Jamaicans were Jamaicans. Watching Harry and Meghan, the Netflix special, I found out that British government and the royal family, they didn't do slave trades and like the transatlantic slave trade like in the US where the slavery was actually in the South on the land. Their slavery and they're making money, they use the West Indian islands for that. So they brought us from Africa, but instead of bringing us to England, they brought us to Jamaica. I had no clue of this.
Oh, yeah. Barbados is the first country in the English-speaking Caribbean to have slaves. Slaves were sent there by the British. The colonizers, in search of wealth to maintain their civilizations, sent us all across the world. Brazil was the last nation to hold out on the enslavement period. Huh? As a matter of fact, I remember when Condoleezza Rice had to tell George Bush when he got to Brazil, and he says, "Oh my God, there's so many black people here." And she goes, "Oh, stop. Outside of the continent of Africa, the largest concentration of people of African descent is in Brazil." And what we do know about Jamaica, and the beauty about Jamaica is that we can call and claim the resistance and resilience of Nanny of the Maroons, that her military strategy was used to defeat the British. We could talk about Paul Bogle.
I'm a descendant of the Maroons.
There you go.
Did you know that?
We can talk about Paul
Yes.
Bogle. We can talk all about that resistance as people.
Yes.
And then also too in Jamaica, then you had the different waves of indentureship, whether there were people who came from India, when there was also to the Chinese and the Hakka Chinese. So they were kind of like a little less than in the Chinese whole packing order of things, right? It is a very fascinating conversation. But
So let me ask you something. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, but the last thing I'm going to say is, and even in the Toronto Raptors, how sweet it is that you can say Siakam. Just the sheer language on your mouth, as opposed to saying it's Jordan, it's Steve, it's David, Siakam.
Yes. So what I wanted to ask you is that, so were there black people in Jamaica before and then the slave ships came and brought other black people? Because like I said, I know about the Maroon tribe and the fighting, so I know there was slavery there, but were there black people there before, or was it just a land uninhabited and then the slave ships brought and slavery was
the beautiful thing about this, and this gives us a moment, because here we are in a land of indigenous people. And we thank the Haudenosaunee, we thank the Anishinaabe, we thank the Métis, the Wendat peoples, we thank the Mississaugas of the Credit. But if you were to go to the Caribbean, the people before there were also indigenous people. In our colonial history books, they were called the Arawaks and the Caribs. But that wasn't really their names.
Gotcha.
And I'm struggling right now. So then there's the Kaliango people. I think that's one of the indigenous people. If you were to go to a place like Trinidad and Tobago, in Arima, there are indigenous people and indigenous descendants to be found there. If you were to go to Dominica, and Dominica has held that tradition of claiming their indigenous people, and they're a nation within a nation. But back to Jamaica, there's a man by Fred Kennedy, and he has written about the Taino people. I think it's Taino. and he's written about their experience. Then there's the Garifuna people, and these are people who came before we were brought to this side of the world. These are the people who were there before the exploiters came. And so when they came and they met those indigenous people, oftentimes they were wiped out with disease. So when they were like annihilated, then you needed labor. You needed more people. So this is where we came into the equation to be that, to supply that labor in order to generate commerce for the Dutch, for the Spanish, for the French, for the British. But prior to all of that, just like in the North American experience, there were native peoples who traveled all across those waters, who came with their own indigenous knowledge, the ways of navigating up and down the oceans, across the leewards, whatever. And so this is where when Christopher Columbus, who was going to India and ended up in the Caribbean and called us the West Indies. So part of that too is that these are the people that he saw. You know, they look like Indian. So we became West Indies, right? And also too because he was lost and thought, you know, he probably was in India. Right, there you go.
See, anyway, this is why you're one of my favorite people. I never have a conversation with you without learning literally like 10 new things about myself and my heritage. But I do have questions for you. I just want to say real quick,
it is really, it takes courage to say what you said. I don't know, and I just discovered. If a lot of people in the world could just do that, human relationships and the dynamics would be just so much different and greater.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
So I appreciate you.
No, for sure. Thank you. Yeah, I never have a problem. Like, I love learning. Part of the reason why I started a podcast is to have conversations with people and learn about things with people so that, you know, you could just, you know, learn all these new, like, fascinating things about life, you know? So, yeah, I'm a sponge. I like learning. Itah, I have some questions for you, okay? So I did some research online, and I haven't been able to find out how many books in total you have written and published. I would love to know this.
Some people just say 700, you know, but we good. Yeah. I like the fact that they have been award winners. But more importantly, this is what I like. Today I met a young man, and this young man has abilities. And he saw me today, and he remembered my voice and stories that I told him many years ago. He also told me that he would go to the Toronto Public Library, dial a story, and that's how he learned English, by listening to me tell it. There were two people in the line today who came to see me today to say, I listened to the dial a story, I loved your storytelling, and that's how we learned English. And recently I opened up the Toronto Star, and there was a Filipino man who said exactly the same thing. So in my lifetime, I have been privileged to document. You documented how sneakers saved my life and how sneakers ruined my life. I applauded you for that because A, it gave us one of your memoirs, if you will. So that is to encourage other entrepreneurs like you, other people who are in the becoming of entrepreneurs. At the same time, what I loved about your books, and I was sharing this with teachers yesterday from the Peel Board, is that in the book, I have your memoir. In the book, I also too have a teachable moment about business. So when you were talking about, I'm going to check to see whether my revenue and my expenditures, and you drop it in a different font, you know, this is what I'm speaking about and this is what it means. And then when you come later on and you give a little hashtag, you know, I remember Auntie Mary telling me this when I was 2. I applaud that because you were speaking to the world on 3 platforms almost at the same time, or to an audience, to an intergenerational audience, if you will.
Yes.
So documentation is very important, and I am happy that both of us have had the privilege to document our work for all Canadians to be engaged in. Yeah.
Yes. You know, it was going to be my next question. All of your books that have been published have been children's books, right? Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought about doing something different, like nonfiction or sci-fi or a self-help book or even a memoir of your own?
I want to write now maybe a YA novel. And the book that though I want to write is a book about capacity building, and community building. As people of African descent in this country, and in particular in Toronto, since 1967, we have been in a renaissance movement. The Renaissance periods that we speak of, France had a Renaissance, there's a Harlem Renaissance, but what about the Toronto Canadian Renaissance? So in 1967, when the Carnival came to Canada, that started, in a kind of a way, our movement of a Renaissance movement.
Yes.
Before that, people might have played hockey in the street. People might have celebrated something in the street. But the notion of a street party, the notion of a bloco, the notion of salsa on Sinclair, the notion of the Greek food festival in the East, that is what came out of the carnival. This idea that you're taking the theater to the street. You are masquerading and making commentary on the society. This is not a protest. What this is a public statement of the consciousness of a society. We inspired that. The blocos, the steel pan on the corner, we amplified those things. At the same time, we then went on in the 1950s to bring our foods, roti, pati, names that are into the international language of fast foods. That's all part of a movement. And then we came with our design and colors and fashion and all that stuff that you know. And the design of sleek sneakers and gear, all that things that you know. And never once we saw ourselves bringing as part of a Renaissance movement. And then we came with The Kink in My Hair. And suddenly The Kink in My Hair by Trey Anthony goes to the Mervish big productions and theater. And then the whole country is reading Lawrence Hill's The Book of Negroes. And then we see it on television. And then everywhere we go, Benetton's using our colors, red, black, green. Hey, come now, come now. And then in the music, the Parachute Club, the dub poetry movement, we hear the fusion of music. And then we look at Montreal, which used to be the jazz place of the North. And all of that, Oscar Peterson, all of that. This is the renaissance of Black people in Canada, shaping an identity. The writings of Austin Clarke, the writings of Makeda Silveria, first LGBTQ press, Sister Vision press in North America, can claim that, right? The writings of Dion Brandt coming out as an LGBT queer woman, claim that. And the beautiful thing about all of this is we come from nations across the Caribbean where we can claim everybody's ancestry one time. Because we are made up of European, we've made up of Asian, we've made up of East Indian, we've made up of Chinese, we make all of that. And it is with all of that fusion that we've brought to this country and a fusion of ideas. We have made Canada look at its racism and shift from the narrative that there wasn't slavery here, that there were no slaves here, that this was the Kumbaya land after the Underground Railroad. All that has been part of our movement. When I read books from Dave Austin, Fear of the Black Nation, talking about the Sir Williams incident back in the day, and that demand for the university, which is now Concordia, to give respect for Black students and foreign students out of the Caribbean and out of the continent. And so if you were to say to me, what is it that I would write now? I want to document this movement that we have brought, this cultural movement, that we are in search of Austin Clarke. We're not in search of James Baldwin, because here's the thing. Austin Clarke, too, went in search of James Baldwin. He couldn't find James Baldwin in Harlem. And one day a man said, hey, Canadian, James Baldwin in France. Hey, why don't you go and see the guy called Malcolm X? He's the hot man of today. So Canadians, as we search for our identity, as we want to claim more things Canadian, especially of people of African descent, here is a moment that we can go in search of the Clarks. We can go in search of all those people who came before us, the Oscar Petersons that added to our body of work and all of those wonderful things that makes it a movement in this country. That's what I want to write on. And finally, I want to write a YA novel around the word unfortunately. And I met a little girl, and every time I met this little girl, she would change schools. And she was a smart little girl. So one day I said to her, may I ask you something? Why do you change schools? And she said to me, because people say I talk white. Ooh, Trent, that knocked me up and down my head. Talking white.
I hate when people say that.
Why is it talking white? What is that stuff, right? So I say to her, give me an example of talking white. And she said, unfortunately. And I go, oh, why is that? And she said, even the white kids in the class say, you talk even whiter than we do. Ooh, shoot, what is that? Now, I know black letters are on a white page, but talking white is a whole nother thing. And then for about 2 years, I would ask people, just random, like I would meet you, Trent, and I go, Trent, why is unfortunately a white word? And you'd go like, what? One day, I'm having dinner with my family, and I look across the table, and I saw it, clear as a bell. Unfortunately, I have to expel your children from school because they're not cutting it today. Unfortunately, I've got to cut off your phone because you did not pay that phone bill. Unfortunately, I have to evict you because you did not pay your rent. So whenever the word unfortunately was used, it was coming out of mouths of power, people who had influence over you. And so most of the time, those people were white. So hence, unfortunately is a white word. Unfortunately, and don't take it personally, but whatever I'm going to say next is going to be really bad, and it's just so unfortunate. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? That's a Seinfeld moment, right?
Wow.
Right? Something so simple.
Wow.
You can just go like...
What does YA mean?
Young adult.
YA novel.
Young adult.
Oh, okay.
Right? And see, here again. Here again. Beautiful people, if you listen to the podcast, because, podcast people sometimes, like, they're an authority about everything. But even young people, if you are watching this, what's a YA? You informed, Trent's informed. No shame on that. No bad on that. Because sometimes in life, we stop learning by pretending that we have to know it all. And sometimes we Google up stuff and it is really wrong. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. No, I would rather, trust me, I would rather have you here beside me all the time to ask you everything. I would love to call you all day to ask you everything.
I can't be hired. I hear that you're a venture capitalist, so, like, hook up the sister.
You know what? Instead of, like, having Siri and Alexa, somebody should create an Itah.
I think we're onto something now.
Yo, exactly. You see how that business mind is thinking? Yeah, I want 20%. Oh my gosh!
I was thinking like, and if I don't know, I'm gonna say to her, "Let's ask Trent."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll be the sidekick. All right, it's gonna be so hard to stay on my questions because you literally just said so many things that I want to ask about. But anyways, let me step aside from this for 1 second. You said something about there being no history of slavery in Canada. Can you just take 2 seconds and correct that very unfortunate misinterpretation of Canada, please?
Well, I think because the Underground Railroad, I'll use that as an example, is known to be that journey of enslaved people, not slaves, enslaved people, coming from America into Canada. It suggests to people that everything was cool here. So, they were having it real bad there. So we go, no, that's it. Right now, the government of Canada has issued its new souvenir stamp. And Chloe Coley is on that stamp. She was a kick-ass rebel woman. No. You know what? I'm telling you, right? She was resistant personified. She ran away so many times to make her head hot, right? She was having none of that. Dr. Afua Cooper writes on Marie Joseph Angelique. And maybe I've got that in a different order. But anyway, and she was an enslaved woman in Montreal that they dragged her through the streets of Montreal. They killed her every which way imaginable you can think of because of her resistance of her enslavement life. So when we talk about Canada and Canadians often get a little uncomfortable. Oh, that's the American history. We were kind of like nice people. No, you also own slaves. Right now, as we see, the former Ryerson University, they changed their name. Why? You know, why is that? Because involved in the slave trade. So many places things are coming down and being renamed. I think Dundas, another slave owner, that street is being changed.
Oh, really?
So,
They're changing
yeah,
Dundas?
they're changing the name. Yeah.
So
right?
Young and Dundas will not be Young and Dundas anymore.
But you know what? I'm saying that, but you know what? They might change 10 blocks and like you're kind of good. I don't know how long it's going to change, but I think it is going to change the Dundas, right?
Wow.
But there are all these things that are happening because people now are more conscious that there was an enslavement period here. And Canada, we can't cut you slack from that. We can't cut you slack from that. But there is that perception oftentimes.
Exactly.
You know, a number of times bounty hunters would come into Canada to take people back. Huh?
Really?
So, and this is where it is sad that these things are not reflected in our history books.
Yes.
And this is where it's sad that people tend to get uncomfortable when you bring these things up. It's like, no, just keep that dormant. We don't really want people to know Canada is this wonderful, lovely white place that we live in.
And we were part of the transatlantic slave trade, right?
Dude, we provided, we were labor for people's great economies. This is like you are like being the fire and the coals to uplift people's economies. So Canada is not exempted from that. The French, the British, nobody is exempted from that.
Whew, thank you very much for clearing that up. All right. In this fast-paced social media world, how do we get more young people into books, reading books?
You know what? Young people are reading books. You see, those kind of
That's
things are
not true.
They are. I see them come all the time into the shop. It is. Do they see themselves? Do they see themselves?
Hold on. Time out. I have given my book to my godsons, and I have given my book to a lot of... Do you know how many people DM me on a regular basis that says, this is the first book that I've read. Your book is one of the first books that I've ever read. So there's a lot of young people that are not big into reading. But you're in the book world, so you don't see that. But there's a lot of people out there who don't read books.
If you tell people that they're hungry every day, even if they're not hungry, they will believe that they are hungry. And if we keep up saying that black people don't read, you know, and if you want to keep a secret, put it in the book because black people don't read. And if you keep saying that black young people don't read, then we will begin to believe that. The school system believes that. It's a lie. Black people read and black young people read. Yeah. And if they're not reading, send them to us. 777 Jackson Street.
That's what we will do. But
and
no,
we're going to tell them how sneakers ruined my life and how sneakers saved my life.
Yes. Carried in your bookstore. Thank you very much for that, by the way. And reordered from your first shipment. So thank you. All right, I want to switch away a little bit because your store is more than just a bookstore. Your bookstore is also home to a different Booklist cultural center, which is what you call the People's Residence. And you created that in 2016, which is a non-profit center that hosts author talks, lectures, children's program, visual art exhibits, and other events, and it's free to the public. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Thank you for that. Out of the history of a different Booklist bookstore, and we are in our 28th year as a bookstore. And out of that history came a cultural center. And originally it was called a different Booklist cultural center. And the reason that it emerged, and I like to say it was an organic expression. And part of that is because people came to the bookstore, like many independent bookstores, and they say, pardon me, can we show a film? Can we dance? Can we read our play in progress? Can we have a pop-up? You know, can we design something? So all these demands. So we became a cultural center. And we became a cultural center because Jade, our window person at the time, he just wrote cultural center next to a different book list and we became that, right? So when the government and people say to me, how did you become a thing? And what survey did you say? Oh, like the people just came and wrote it up. Done here.
Wow. Those are how some of the best businesses are formed, man.
Right? So we felt
Yes.
that it was important, especially because we are located on Bathurst Street in a neighborhood called the Annex neighborhood, which has considerable assets of black people. The first black conductor, first letter carrier, Austin Clark, first author of color to be published by a major publisher. Donald Moore, who impacted emigration so that domestics could come to this country in the 1950s. I could just go on and on and on, right? So in this area, then it made it. So then we became like Auburn Street in Atlanta. We became the Harlem Street, if you will. So in this neighborhood, then it made logical sense for us to be as a cultural center to present the legacy of this neighborhood. And with the hope that when we do that, we will also invite innovation of young people, that young people will come and be part of the space so that they can continue the legacy and take us to the next level of innovation. So we have the center so that we can grow roots deeper on a street called Bathurst. We call it Blackhurst because there are a lot of accents. And we have the center so that all Canadians can come into this space to be further aware of our history in this country. It is not a temporary history. It's a history that has started since 1604 or 1605 with the arrival of Mathieu de Costa, a free person, coming with the explorers Samuel de Champlain and Pierre de Gaulle de Mons. So this is who we are. And so I am pleased that on a good day, whether it be a big celebrity, Latifah, Shaquille O'Neal, whether it be the Prime Minister of the Republic of Barbados or the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, whether it be the NAACP, or whether it be the grandmothers out of South Africa come into this country to see who we are and what we're about, or it just might be that new immigrant to the city who is somebody huge and big in their country. But in this city and in this country, they are only known by a number. And when they come through the doors of the center, somebody will call them by their name.
Wow.
Okay? That's who we are, why we exist.
You are, that was powerful. You have referred to Bathurst Strip, that where your store sits on, as the Mecca of our history. Can you explain to us why?
Oh, that's easy. Right now I'm looking at the streetcar, and the streetcar is right in front of me, TTC. And at one point in time, black men worked on the streetcar and heated the streetcar with the coals to keep the streetcar warm. When I come to the subway at Bathurst Street, the first thing I smell are Jamaican patties. And those patties are probably now being cooked in bacon served by people out of East Africa. What an intersection and a fusion happening there. So when I get on the corner and I see the coffee shops, I think of Abyssinia in Ethiopia and the history of coffee. When I come on the street and I see the medical center and I think of how Dr. Kenneth Montague marries the arts and dentistry together and how cool that is. And I remember the time when Joyce's was home and hey! I ding, right? And then America has Madam C.J. Walker. On the $10 bill, there is Viola Desmond. But right here on Bathurst, too, we had Beverly Masco, a woman who brought us makeup so that we don't look like Lena Horne. Everybody can't look like Lena Horne, right? Oh, for you young people who are listening to this podcast and have no idea who Lena Horne is.
Google Lena Horne,
Alicia
I know.
Keys. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
right?
my dad loved Lena Horne.
Yes, you played a lot of music in your home. So here is Beverly Masco, and she, like Viola Desmond, put the makeup in her car, drove around so that we could look good, so we could stop going to Buffalo every weekend to buy makeup and buy pantyhose and all that kind of stuff. In this neighborhood, also Austin Clark lived. In this neighborhood also, too, was the presence of Contrast, the first black newspaper. In this neighborhood, there were so many firsts. The Brotherhood of Sleeping Car members are here. Harry Gary Sr., who created the first ordinance in Toronto in 1947, which said that everybody is allowed to go to skate freely freely in a skating ring because his son experienced discrimination, racism, when he went to skate at the Icelandic skating arena, which used to be at Young near Sinclair. So in this city, this is where Mammy Brown, Deborah Brown, we can see the presence of the Underground Railroad. This is where we went to the Bathurst Street Theater back in the day. We partied all night like it was 1990. Right? And then about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, everybody sort of cleaned up. And then we go, Hail Mary, Hail Mary. And then we had church. Holy, holy, holy. You know what I'm saying, right? So, and again, this is the beauty. You could be listening to a reggae lick, and somebody talking about somebody's panani, and then in the second verses be like, "Our Father which art in heaven."
Oh my Lord!
Right?
All right.
So why is it a Mecca? And it's a Mecca because of different Booklist in the Blackhurst Cultural Center.
There you go. There you go. That's what I wanted to hear. Oh my gosh. All right. And by the way, just to not all the whole strip of Bathurst, we're talking about Bathurst and Bloor. If you ever go to the Toronto area and you want to feel where the Mecca of our history is, start on the corner of Bathurst and Bloor North, right? You got to go up. Or is it Bathurst and Bloor South and North?
But you know what? I just not seeing that you all limiting our potential here. Listen here. So the beauty thing, when you go to the Caribbean and Marcy, so where Trent been? Well, you know what? Go down the road that's all. And just turn after you pass 3 miles. Okay. And it right, that's all. Like, remember, it close. But how long is it? It's 3 miles.
Yeah, but it's not like Bathurst and Spadina Bathurst and Spadina where my store was. Would you consider that the Mecca of our history too?
Bathurst and Spadina don't even intersect. Bathurst runs parallel to Spadina.
Bathurst and Queen. Sorry, Bathurst and Queen. That's how I thought about it.
Bathurst and Queen, there you have Jackie Chan, trans musician. Back in the day. Oh, dude. White people everywhere.
So it's the whole entire Bathurst Street?
Claim it. What's wrong with you? If you go to Mars, you're going to claim it. You ever see? You think when America goes to you think when America goes to Mars?
Are you surprised that you're teaching me stuff? Come on, that's all you do is teach me stuff. Are you surprised? Really?
But the other thing, 2 things I'm going to say to that. 2 things I'm going to say. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. came to Holy Blossom Synagogue, which is at Eglinton in Bathurst. So Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has presence. Holy Blossom, because at one point the Jewish community, they were the people who rented our homes and rented homes to us and all of that. They also raised money for the civil rights movement back in the day. Yeah. So he came to Bathurst Street. How sweet and cool that is, right? So I don't want to, limit it up. And Jackie Chan, if you look that up, huge history in music, right? Before all this LGBTQ conversation in trans, there was Jackie Chan. So I'm saying, Jackie Chan, I'm saying that it's endless. Don't limit ourselves to we are just but the concentration. And at Spadina, Trent, that is where Donald Moore, on Spadina Avenue, Donald Moore had his dry cleaners. That's where that was located. And that's Spadina. Okay. And in College Street is where you had the Garveyites and the UNIA office. These are people who were the disciples of Marcus Garvey. So, I ain't in no 4-block radius thing, boy. We long.
All right, fine. Visit the entire Bathurst Street. Done. My last question for you is the reason why we got everybody together for this podcast is you wanted to change the logo. Can you tell us a little bit about why and about how you came up with starting this logo competition?
Sometimes when you give birth, that child has an identity. It's not the identity of the parents, because whatever the parents have poured into that origin or beginning will be there. And so when people asked, what is this project called? I remember when the Mervish Village on Ed's Empire was closing, they asked us what we really like to do. And we said we would like to have an exhibition to present the histories of people of African descent in this neighborhood. And they said, yeah, okay, this is a good idea. What is it called? And so going to the meeting, we didn't really have a name. And as we got at the door, I said, Blackhurst, that's it. Because it's just natural, right? You're a Brandon man. You get that real quick. And Christina Mears said, welcome to. So we had this thing called Blackhurst. And what we know, that in people's language, that they were going to automatically say it. I'm going down Blackhurst, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. So it became Blackhurst.
Gotcha.
Over the time, it was an informal name, but we were still formally called a different Booklist Cultural Center, the People's Residence. Right? And so to separate the identity of the cultural center from the bookstore, which is still a different book list, we came to that moment that this child has to have its own distinct identity, and it is the Blackhurst Cultural Center. You wrestle with things like, oh gosh, I gotta give up the A because in alphabetical order I listed first.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right? You know how it is in marketing. And so it was wonderful to land on B. At every point of the way, it is important, and it has been important for us as an organization, to have the community included, the people, we the people included. And so we saw this, you moved us, and now we are saying to you, help us shape our identity. And so we took the community logo engagement project to the world. Visual artists, people, we are calling upon you to help us dress this child, help us shape it. And so the community responded. And I was happy that the people who responded to the logo engagement project were people who were under 40. That was a good sign for us. Young people came out. And then we had this competition, and we came down to 2 people, Marley Berot, who took the 2nd place, Kanna, Anigbogu, oh my gosh, I had to think about his name, right?
Oh, yeah.
Who won the 1st prize. And also we also had involvement with Shelton, Deverell.
Yes.
But Kanna is the winner of the Blackhurst logo competition, and we wear it with incredible pride. We now have merchandise, and people have adopted to the name the Blackhurst Cultural Center. The other day I answered the phone, and when I answered the phone, all I said was Blackhurst. And so in the tempo of Nike, in the tempo of Brandon, it has also showed us how in the sweetness of our language, how in the sweetness of our accents, we will bring this thing down to Blackhurst. And for all those now who are listening to me and feeling the love and the trust coming through, I hope that you are going to come to blackhurstcc.org, and you're going to say, you know what, today I'm going to buy a brick and put my name onto history's page. I too want to be part of the Blackhurst experience. I know that you're going to think, I want to send an e-transfer to info@blackhurstcc.org. I'm going to call 50 of my peeps right now, and tonight at 7 o'clock, we are all going to send $7 at 7, and then we're going to get on the phone and encourage 7 more people to do that. And we're going to ask those 7 people to encourage 7 more people so that we become 21 people now rippling across the world. And that 21 people could become easily 2,100 people. And every time that you come to the city of Toronto, or you live in the city of Toronto, you're going to think, I have contributed to legacy. I have contributed to infrastructure. I have done something cool. When Spike Lee made his first film, She's Got to Have It, he went to his friends who had credit cards and say, put me on your credit card so that I can make this film, She's Got to Have It. And the rest is history. It's just called Spike Lee. When Trent wanted to set up shop, he went to his best friends or to people that had that trust factor with, even asking craziness, and said, give me a little muckle, because every mickle is a mickle, or every mickle is a muckle. What Jamaicans say, it all adds up. And they did.
Yeah.
That is all that
Yeah.
we are saying to people. Is if we all contribute and come collectively together, we can build infrastructure in this country. Whether it's in the city of Toronto or whether it's in the great beautiful city too of Montreal.
You are an amazing person. Beautiful idea of having somebody, and I love the way how you always phrase things. I mean, you're an author, so it's not surprising, but you had the community help you clothe your child. Like, that is brilliant. I want to end it off by telling people how we know each other. The same thing when I was on your show and your podcast, because you mentioned something about other artists that didn't join into this logo competition, and they'll trust you for next time. Just want to give people an idea. When I was looking to write my book, I had no clue about books at all. I spoke with Tasha Sube, and she said, "Hey, I know somebody in the book world," and she gave me your phone number. And I called you. We never met. You had no clue who I was. I was just this punk kid, just like, "Hey, I think I want to be an author. I think I want to write a book." And you took time out of your day, walking me through. I called you, and you were always there to answer my phone, and you were always there to answer my text messages, and took me from A to B, from A to Z in the book world. And I'm always going to be so grateful to you for that. And I'm always going to tell that story because, anybody who's listened this long to the podcast knows that you're a brilliant woman, and, you have so much culture, and you have so much depth, and you have so much intelligence. But to me, what surpasses all of that, and I'm always amazed by how much, wealth of knowledge you have, of just how much of a beautiful soul you are, man. And it's just, I feel like that story encompasses how much of a beautiful, caring, loving person you are, and how much you care about other people and helping the community. Because a lot of people talk about community help and talk about community involvement. You really do it. Like, you never asked me for a penny, so I'm forever indebted to you for being a consultant on my book. So thank you so much. And I will always love you,
Trent,
and be here for you.
For me, it is, and this is something to take into your life. All the times that you've gone to people and they have said no or be discouraging, and you sit there and you tell yourself, when I have that opportunity, I'm never going to do that. So when people call me about an idea and I assist them with it, it's for all those times that I sat in somebody's office telling me, no, it's not going to work. And I sat there in those times and I thought, whenever I have the opportunity, I'm not going to discourage, because those people cannot start where I started. They have to start where I've ended. And so it is with great respect. And if we don't uplift the people who come after, who is going to do that? Who's going to do that?
Yeah.
So it was joy.
People need to start where you ended.
Yeah, we did have to start
dropping so many gems, man.
And I love the book. I read the manuscript, the book, and I thought, the imagination. I got to tell you, in your book, I mean, and I talked a little bit about your different styles in the book and how they spoke to intergeneration. But I love that particular story of when your store was closing and everybody came and you had the closing party. And then they went to sleep. They stayed over. I thought, that's a party.
Exactly.
Right? And then they woke up the next day and it was an opening party.
Yeah.
I thought, that rocks my world.
Yeah. I love doing those kind of things and being with my clients and thinking about different ways to interact with people. And kind of like you, I've obviously was in a community center, but I always thought about my stores as a place where people could come together,
Yes.
And staff and clients could be one, and not only thinking about upselling and stuff like that. So it's super important.
Yeah. Well, welcome to Blackhurst with your store anytime.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I know you're a very busy woman, fundraising and moving and doing all of these things. So thank you very much for taking the time to be on my podcast and, and drop some of your gems on my listeners. And, as always, I'm here anytime you need me for anything. I'm always here for you, and I love you dearly. Thank you very, very much.
Love back. Okay.
All right.
Enough respect, everybody.
With a round of applause for Itah. Yay! this is the first time I'm ever doing this. I'm going to be interviewing 5 different people. I'm going to put it together as one podcast. They're all interviewed separately. So stick by me. I hope this is going to be fun. We're going to, I hope it, not that it's going to try and be fun. I hope it's going to work out and all make sense. Anyways, all right. So that was the first interview. Let's jump now to the second interview with Abena Perry. Let's get into it. Welcome, Abena. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. Okay, cool. So tell us your involvement with Blackhurst and Itah and a different book list.
So we got introduced to Itah, and it was really in the space of helping them synthesize their marketing and communications message to help them approach organizations to really get funding, because they're in a critical stage where they're looking at getting infrastructure. And so having a building part of Mirvish Village in a historic part of Toronto was on their radar. And so Andrew Perry started helping them about approximately 3 years ago. And so we've done work from refreshing their brand, synthesizing their marketing message, putting together pitch decks, and then helping them with their marketing campaigns. And specifically with the logo project, they were formerly a different Booklist cultural center. And so the cultural center grew out of the bookstore, but Itah's already shared that.
Yeah.
And so we knew that the name change was coming, and we looked at a way that we could make it a change that engulfed or incorporated community. And
Right.
so and that's what's at the core of everything that Blackhurst does as a cultural center, is how can we be for community, by community, hearing community's voices. And it was an absolutely amazing opportunity to uplift artists within the community,
Yeah.
and have them be part of the evolution from a different Booklist cultural center to the new Blackhurst.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, I love what you guys did, and just a little bit of a background. Like, you guys reached out to me to do a video. It was in the summertime, and I missed the email, and I
It's
apologized
okay. It's
a
okay.
million times about it.
You're
But no,
making
I
up
just
for it now.
yeah, exactly. No, I just love the outreach that you guys did, and I love I love the whole, just the idea of it, the whole campaign of just involving the community. And I know it's always spearheaded from Itah, but I think that you guys did a great job about it. I heard about it, on Instagram even after you could contacted me, so I knew that like the word was out there, And then what I also loved, and then you could touch on a little bit too, is like, did you know about the area, about Bathurst and Bloor and Blackhurst before meeting with Itah?
So no, I didn't actually know
Yeah.
that it was called Blackhurst informally. I
Yeah.
had been in the neighborhood because, being of Caribbean descent, my parents immigrated back in the 60s, early 70s. And so while we lived in Thorncliffe Park, Saturday mornings we would be down in that neighborhood, Honest Ed's, Kensington Market, shopping. And so it was a meeting place that new immigrants would come, because
Yeah.
Honest Ed's was a landmark. And so I knew a bit of the history. And when I met with Itah to understand what the cultural center was doing, it just was at a time where it was pivotal to get involved and help raise awareness of the great work that the center is doing within the community.
Yeah. Amazing. Me too. I had no clue about it. I saw just I don't know if you follow the Brenna Gone show, and then they just acquired Now magazine, and Now just did a little spotlight. I don't know if you saw it, but I just feel like more and more people are starting to know about Blackhurst area, and that's just, kudos to you guys for the work that you're doing. I mean, who knew that we had? It's almost kind of like a Black Wall Street,
Yeah. It's too well of a kept secret, and we want to
Exactly.
change that this year.
Exactly.
And they launched their Welcome to Blackhurst book that highlights trailblazers and change makers from the community, which is awesome. For February, Black History Month, they're doing a Welcome to Blackhurst exhibit once again, which is awesome. And they've got the Welcome to Blackhurst walking tours, in which they take you around the neighborhood to showcase the houses and areas that the trailblazers, and change makers came from. And so it's an awesome opportunity to understand our heritage,
Yeah.
whether you are from Caribbean descent,
Yeah.
African descent, Canadian descent, any descent. It's awesome.
Where does one apply to go to that? I want to take a tour. How do you get onto that tour?
So you contact Blackhurst. You
Okay.
you simply you can call them or you can send them an email, info@blackhurstcc.org,
Okay.
and they'll let you know when their next coming walking tour is on.
Okay, so that was the interview with Abena, managing partner, Andrew Perry. Super fun interview. Now we are going to go to the third interview with the winner, the first place winner of the logo competition. Not going to try to pronounce his last name because I don't want to get it wrong, but let's start the interview with Kanna. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my next guest, the first place winner of the Bathurst. I'm told I'm not supposed to call it a competition. It was a logo participation design. Please welcome a big round of applause for Kanna, and I'm not going to try the last name. Say it. Kanna Anigbogu. Abogu. Well, we tried to prepare before we started recording, but I don't want to take the chance. How are you, my brother?
Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm very good, man. Thank you for asking. All right, so like I said in the introduction, you were the winner of the program of the design. Let's just call it a competition. Okay, we'll call it what it is, the design competition. All right, so first, how did you first find out about the competition?
Good question. Itah reached out to me. I didn't know anything about the competition, but the reason Itah reached out to me was that I'd worked at a different book list, 2017, 2018. And we talked about, what the future for the center and what it was going to look like and how it would expand. And you know how Itah does. She would just proclaim and say a lot of things. In the moment, it seems crazy, but then a few years down the line, you see it's happening. So that's how it was, one of those sessions where we were just talking about what the center was going to evolve into. And then fast forward to a few months back, I get an email from her saying, oh, there's this project she's doing, trying to rebrand the center from a different Booklist Cultural Center to Blackhurst Cultural Center, and it needs a logo design. And she knows that I'm into illustration and design and art. And she was like, I think this is going to be a good opportunity for you, and we'd like to see what you can do for us. And I was like, of course, I'm going to do it like that. It sounds like a very good deal. So, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so because you worked there already in the past, you were familiar with the Blackhurst area, Bathurst and Bloor, and the Black historical background that the cultural center has.
Yes, I'd worked. Especially now that it's Black History Month, I've done a couple of things there at the time. Marcus Garvey, and then the first Black post office character, Alfred. I don't remember his last name, but I know his name was Alfred.
Yeah, I think he was the first mailman, the first Black mailman.
I worked on that project, and we did the whole work with Canada Post. Students writing to make
Oh, hold on a second! Don't speed past that. You worked on the stamp. Oh, that is super cool, man. So what did you do? What you did the illustration? Was it you and somebody else?
The stamp, but I worked on the project of us doing that project involving Canada Post. The students who would come from different schools where Itah would tell the stories, and then tell them to write a letter to Canada Post telling them, hey, this guy is such a great guy. He's someone that is important to the community and history of Black people. We should commemorate him somehow, and that somehow is via a stamp because it was a mailman. So yeah, I worked on that project, but I didn't design the stamp. No.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant you designed it. Okay, cool. Hey, but you still played a part in it, man. Okay, so were there parts of your design, like where did you get the inspiration for your design? Was it the area? Was it because you knew Itah so well? Where does your inspiration
It
come
was a
from?
collection of things. So it was again having worked at a different Booklist cultural center, like it was called before. I had an idea of what Itah wanted in terms of community and in creating a space in that particular area for Black people. So that sensibility already informed my design process. I also took inspiration from, because I'm an immigrant Nigerian and I took inspiration from,
Shout out to
yeah.
Nigeria. Woo! Yo, let's get a round of applause for Nigeria, baby. Hey!
And then I took some inspiration from
sorry.
from design, from some traditional Yoruba culture designs, and then just also the different stories of people who have coming through the center that I've met, and the bookstore around as well. All of that informed my design, and then I also have a particular line art form that I also just incorporated because I felt, why not just put a little bit of your own self into this piece beyond just the corporate feel of it. So those are just a couple of things that kind of inform my design process.
Amazing. Congrats. Okay, well, look, the bulk of my podcast, the reason why I started my podcast is to talk to people from all journeys and all walks of life to kind of just, learn about someone's journey so that you can inspire other people. So can you tell us a little bit about your background? Are you African born or Canadian born? And how did you get into design and illustration?
I was born in the US, but I grew up in Nigeria. And then I left Nigeria in 2015. I did my
Wow. Okay, so you're new to Canada.
Because I've seen some newer people. I'm like, no, I'm not that new.
Yeah, you're what? 8 years. I guess you're kind of getting a little acclimated now at some point.
But I did my.
Are you used to the snow yet?
Oh my god! Yesterday and today.
Oh
my god.
Yo, come to Montreal, my brother. Trust me. It's pretty bad, man. It's pretty bad. Do you send pictures back to Nigeria and be like, look what I have to live in? Yeah.
So I before I left Nigeria, I did my undergrad in chemical engineering. Then I found out that it wasn't for me. So once I had the opportunity to leave, I had already done some research as to what I could do, and I realized it was creative problem solving and creative arts. So when I moved to Canada, I just did a complete transition from chemical engineering, and then went into advertising and art. And
why did you move from Nigeria?
I got lucky.
What was the reason for the move?
Just got lucky.
Okay.
Family said, "Listen, just go to Canada and start a life, and then see how you can, support family and just make something of yourself." That was it for me.
Do you ever plan to go back to live there, or Canada?
It's gonna be
home?
A back and forth, right? So it's a mix of going back to see family, to do business, and then also having Canada as the main base. So it's gonna be both. Yeah.
That's amazing. I feel like there's this resurgence of like going back to the motherland.
Yes, and
I felt that. Have you felt that too?
Because it's very different than when I was growing up. There's people who came from North America to Africa. They didn't feel they weren't happy to be there, right? But I can tell that there's a maturity and understanding of culture and history, and to be surrounded by people here who are eager to go back to see, the motherland and see the home makes me feel, this it's doable and there's benefit to it. So
yeah, I think it's the music. I think it's Afrobeats, man. You know what I mean? Like Afrobeats is slapping right now. I did a podcast with Brandon Gomez, and myself and Brandon are Jamaican. And we were talking about how much we love reggae music. We grew up with reggae music. It's our heart. But then, you see on Instagram or you see these polls of like, what do you prefer, reggae or Afrobeats? And as a Jamaican, you want to hit the reggae. No, I know they shouldn't, but it's fine to do, to poll it. But it's like you want to hit the reggae button, but Afrobeats is slapping so hard right now. Like it's just a good genre, man.
Yeah,
and
I think they found a way to make it more appealing, and they're riding that way, of course, till tomorrow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, so that was the interview with Kaya, Now we're going to jump into the fourth interview with Shelton Deverell. Welcome back to the Trent Out Loud Podcast. And I am here now with we'll get into it, but the first place competition, late entry, runner-up, winner, Shelton Deverell. Hey! Welcome to the podcast, brother. How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Okay. I'm good. Very good. Thank you for asking. All right. So we had a little bit of delays. We had some microphone issues. So that's why you're seeing Shelton's phone in the shot. But we're here and we made it, man. I am good, brother. So congratulations on being, part of the winning team. And we already talked with Itah and a few people already, so that we know everything that has gone on and transpired. So congratulations once again. And I guess I'll just jump right in to ask you. So you had a late submission, but even though that you were late, they decided to pick part of your design to go with Kenya's design
Right.
to go together to make it. So how did you feel about, being a late entry, but still being part of the winning team?
Well, I mean, it was great that they found a solution that works for me and works for the organization, and it's such an honor to put together like a logo like this that is going to be, I think, useful in creating the identity of an important, what will become an institution in the neighborhood, I think.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. I worked really hard on it, and I think I did some of those things you do reading the fine print that you just don't get all of the information. So
Exactly.
I was really thankful that it worked out.
Okay, good. So were you familiar with Blackhurst, Bathurst, and Bloor, and all the rich Black heritage that was there?
I'm not sure I knew the history until I read it about it. Actually, like I was aware that there was black businesses there at that corner, but I didn't know that it extended as far as the history goes. Yeah, until I read a
Amazing.
little bit about it. Yeah.
You're part
Of
of a
course.
rich history, man. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Of course, I've had sort of like a little bit of involvement with the center itself, a
Okay.
different book list prior to this that is kind of what what's bringing me into this process is that actually I have a few other points. My mother, Rita Deverell, launched a book there called American Refugees Turning to Canada for Freedom.
Wow.
And so she had a highly successful event at a different book list. I designed a pamphlet for a different book list, kind of a fundraising pamphlet, which was kind of anticipating the move to Mirvish Village,
Okay.
and creating a space for this new center. So I had an idea I had photographed different locations within a different book list, and I had talked to Itah about what she wanted and the team there about what they wanted for this pamphlet. So I was kind of aware of some of the questions that a person would ask about the organization that they would want to
Understood.
know before they design a logo or something. They kind of create a profile for that organization, figure out what it is that the organization does. So
Gotcha.
although Blackhurst will be a different entity than a different book list, I think, it has some of the involvement, the activism, and also social programs. It's some of those things, workshops, like across a wide variety of different industries. Could be music, could be
Yeah.
could be graphic design, could be anything to empower people. So I knew that. And the other thing
Okay.
that I did actually, and there was one other thing, which I created illustrations for a kid's book
Okay.
called Muddle in the Park. It's sort of about peace among different groups, um, and it has been at sold at a different book list.
Oh
So
wow. Okay.
that's the kind of past involvement I've had with Ida and a different book list.
All right, that was our fourth interviewee. Now let's jump into our fifth and final part of the interview with the second place runner-up. Let's start the interview with Marley Berot. Welcome back to the Trent Out Loud Podcast. I now have the runner-up to the logo competition. Please welcome Marley Berot. Woo!
Hi, hello. Wow,
You like those sound effects?
Yeah, I don't know where those people are, but it's great.
Feel like you're on the Oprah show?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it makes me feel special, you know?
Yeah, dream come true, kind of. Yeah.
Exactly. How are you?
Good, good.
Good. All right, cool. So we've had everybody on so far, so we know all about like the logo and all of that stuff. What I wanted to ask you is, how did you first hear about the logo competition? How'd you get involved?
Well, I've been in contact with Ida for about a couple years, maybe 3 years now. And every once in a while, she'll just email me out of the blue, be like, "Hey, there's this thing happening. You need to be ready for this time. Just get it all done." And I'm like,
Itah
"Okay."
is amazing, man. And nobody yet has been like, "Oh, I just saw it on Instagram." It's like Itah called me and said, "Do this," or Itah called
Yeah.
and said, "She is amazing." Okay, go ahead.
Oh yeah. It's all about those connections, honestly. Ida
For sure.
is amazing. She's gotten me I've done a like a book illustration for her, which should be coming out in May. Very exciting. I've done shows at her store. Just so many things that she's connected me to, and it's amazing. I love it.
Amazing.
Mhm.
So when I first met Itah, I didn't know about the Bathurst and Bloor area and the rich Black heritage. I'm calling it like the Canadian Black Wall Street. What
Mhm.
was your experience with it? Did you know about it? What are some of the things that you've learned from it that you could share with some of my listeners?
I didn't know a lot about it. I heard about it like whispers through the
Hmm.
vine, but uh when I first stepped in, I had no idea what it was going to be. I had done a art show previously at a separate place, and then I got introduced to Ida, and then it was just all uphill from there. It was great.
Nice. So like, do you go to like anywhere else around there other than the Blackhurst Cultural Center, or do you just when you go there you just go and see Itah?
I have a kind of a bit of a routine when I go to Toronto. It's like I go to Ida, I visit her, and then I'll go to this Korean grocery store that's just down the street, and I'll buy like a pastry, and then I'll just do a little shopping, and it's great.
Amazing. So you're not from Toronto. Where are you from?
I'm from Burlington. It's about an hour out from Toronto, but I
Okay.
would love to live there one day. It's
Yeah.
definitely my city. I love it. It's great.
What is your background with art and graphic design and illustration?
So I went to Fanshawe for fashion design, and when
Hmm.
I was there for about a year, and I realized that I can't live without art in general. So I sort of dove headfirst into that, and then I went to George Brown for graphic design.
Okay.
And after that, it was just me on my own trying to make it big in this world, kind of. And before that, I've always loved art, but I never really
Yeah.
realized I could make it a profession. And
Yeah.
so when I realized that, and I realized that I really just needed to be in this industry, then
Mhm.
I just dove into it.
Is that those two paintings in the back? Is that your work, or that is that just photography?
These are just photography. I actually stole them from my sister. But yeah, I have a few pieces. I actually have an art show coming up tomorrow at Blackhurst, so
Okay.
that's going to be very exciting. Hopefully, a lot
Okay.
of people show up.
Done. Well, this is not going to be out in time for tomorrow, so I wish I
Fair.
could promote it. But where could people see your art and follow you to see like your next show, maybe?
I have an Instagram at Marley underscore BEEZ
Mhm.
uh, underscore art, and then Yeah, that's about it. I have a
Okay.
TikTok, but it's more just random stuff, like day to day kind of behind the scenes stuff.
Hey, that's
Um,
good. People need to fall in love with your personality sometimes before the art, you know? So give us your
exactly.
TikTok.
Oh yeah. It is Marley underscore BEEZ underscore. Yeah.
Okay. So, I guess that's it for my questions. Congratulations again. Congratulations on your runner-up prize from Exclucity Helps Foundation, your $250. And, we're here if you ever need us, if you ever have like an art show, like, contact us and, we'll try to promote. And, what I've learned from Itah is that you got to keep your community close and reach out and help other people. So we're here if you ever need some help from us.
Of course, yes.
Okay.
Also, I forgot. I can't believe I forgot, but I have a website.
Ah,
It's
boom. There you go.
yeah, it's marleysapothecary.com. That's my
Okay, you're gonna have
website.
to spell that out for people.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
okay. It's APOTHORAY. Apothecary.
Per- Perfect.
Yeah,
Send it to me in an email, and I'll put it at the bottom of on Instagram, and I'll try to add everyone's Instagram on there too, and hopefully get it out and give you guys some much deserved attention.
amazing. Thank you.
Okay, man. Thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you for having me.
All right,
All
no
right.
problem. Take care. All right, you guys, that is a wrap. That's all 5 interviews put into one. I hope you guys liked it. The biggest takeaway is if you're from the Toronto area and you haven't visited a different Booklist or Blackhurst Cultural Center, get down there, go check it out. Not just for Black History Month, just go at any time. It's an amazing space. You have amazing people there. If you're visiting the Toronto area, make sure you put it on of one of your stops. It is an amazing area, an amazing place to go and get a little bit of our Black Canadian African history. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It's your boy, Trent Out Loud. Peace!